So I've now got my base layer and mid layer on. We're going to go through the insulation layer. Why would we want an insulation layer? Well, when we stop walking, for example, and we sit down and we have a bit of food or something to drink, generally we cool down quite quickly because obviously we stop moving. Okay, so we cool down fairly quickly, so putting a nice insulation jacket on at that point is just going to hold that temperature for us, which is going to be ideal. Obviously, if we're wild camping around the evening time when it gets colder, and we're sat around chilling out, cooking, all that sort of stuff, having a nice warm jacket to throw on is going to be ideal. And then when you're actually walking downhill, especially in the winter conditions especially, so sticking an insulation jacket on for the downhill sections is going to be beneficial because you're not going to be producing as much heat. So if it's freezing cold, really snowy, you're getting blasted by wind, you might still wear an insulation jacket on the move, especially going downhill, okay, in the winter. Now there's a couple of things that we need to consider when it comes to choosing our insulation jacket. The first one is making sure that it fits under our shell jacket if required, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And the other one is the type of fill that we're going to use. Okay, so this red jacket, the RAB jacket, is down-filled, which means it's filled with feathers, whereas the grey jacket here is a synthetic fill, which means it's man-made, essentially man-made material. Now the benefit of the down jacket with the feathers is the feathers puff up and they provide a lot of good insulation, and then when I pack it down and squeeze it, it goes into a much smaller space than a synthetic jacket. So it's fantastic for space saving, for the actual heat it provides. The downside of a down jacket, so a feather-filled jacket essentially, is when it gets wet, those feathers stick together. And because those feathers stick together, it doesn't create any nice air pockets to keep us warm. So they stick together and everything flattens and it doesn't really provide us with much heat. So this is a great jacket in cold, dry weather. So in the winter when it's not raining, it's just a bit snowy, freezing cold. That's great for in the winter when it's dry. However, it's not very good if it's wet. Whereas a synthetic jacket may not pack down as much and may not provide as much insulation in comparison to the RAB jacket, the down jacket for the size. When this gets wet, it still allows us to maintain our heat. So in colder, wetter weathers, this jacket is my go-to. Now, they fit under my shell jacket, which is fantastic. However, I've got this big insulation jacket here as well, massive thick RAB jacket. Now this doesn't really fit under my shell jacket very well. What I use this for is when I'm out in the winter in dry, really cold weather, I'll stick this over the top of everything when I stop. So even if I'm wearing a shell jacket, such as a Gore-Tex jacket or a windproof jacket, I'll stick this over the top just to keep everything nice and toasty and hold that heat. Generally when I'm winter climbing and I'm at a belay stance, this will just get hauled over the top of everything so I can stay nice and warm on the belay stance. Or if I'm just stopping and chilling, I'll bang this over the top. Okay, so that's the insulation layer. That's where it's really going to provide you with that warmth, keep you nice and toasty.